Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.
Buddy.
What's up, man?
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
I'm really happy to have you on the show. We've been
Thanks.
chatting for a while here, and I know this is going to be a hashtag controversy, is what you said?
It'd be fun. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I like you're racy enough that you're going to challenge some...
risque.
Risque. Well, I wouldn't have said that personally. Ben Jones, otherwise known as Ben Falafi Jones.
Yeah.
Otherwise
Ben Falafi
known
Jones.
as...
You can look me up on Facebook and Instagram.
Hashtag.
Shameless promotion.
All right, we're starting out with a shameless plug. This is really going downhill at the very outset.
Yeah.
What do they call you? What's your other names? What are you also known by?
My full name is Penyamina Falafi Jones.
Penyamina Falafi Jones.
Yeah, I'm from American Samoa, originally born and raised. So if you guys watch Hobbs and Shaw, that's you. Yeah. All the haka. I mean, I don't, you saw me on the movie? Maybe? No.
Well, I'm really happy you're here, man.
Yeah, me too, man.
We've known each other for...
you having me on.
Hey, I wrote about you in my book.
I know.
That's how much I like you.
I'm honored, man. Thank you for putting me in your best-selling book.
Well, what can I say?
Yeah, buy on Amazon.
Yeah, hashtag the mind of a missionary.
Mind of a missionary.
I wrote about you though because we had met, but I kept hearing this story about the Buddha guy.
Yeah.
Do you like being called the Buddha guy?
I think it's
semi-derogative.
Yeah, it's a bit aggressive. Aggressive.
Well, let's give some context here.
Yeah.
They call you the Buddha guy because you've done ministry in Thailand for many, many years and had success in the way that you present the gospel quite differently perhaps than many other traditional missionaries have gone about it.
I think I caught that name because I did things that looked really Buddhist and as a way to introduce Jesus to people who are Buddhist and make them feel comfortable, but it made some people uncomfortable because it wasn't a gimmick. It was authentic. It was I wasn't going to go back to let's say I was going to teach this monk or a really strong Buddhist person a chant, like a Buddhist chant, sounding chant, but it was actually a prayer to Jesus. And once they came to Christ and they had an experience with God, I wasn't going to turn around and plug them into a traditional Western style church and have them learn how to worship God in a Western way. So that is what I tried to explain, but I think I was a bit overzealous. A lot of times you have to, when you're working through things, especially it just kind of sometimes gets political internally. And even when I grew up, you just taught what's right, what's wrong, the Bible, and then on contrast to really solidify what's right and wrong, you got to make somebody else not right, and so comparatively to you. So that I didn't realize that pattern permeates everything.
That wrong, right, guilt, innocent.
I'm right, and then there has to be somebody who's wrong.
Okay.
And then the debate style.
Yes. You're talking from a Western perspective.
Yes, obviously. I am, because I think even though I'm from American Samoa, the normal people don't talk like this.
It's not.
It's
the mainland of America.
It's like more like I think I'm talking from a perspective of a pastor or a leader or a theologian type, which is a very small percentage. Like the common Christian in the States aren't really talking these about like theology or right way, wrong way. It's mostly like if you're a pastor or you're a leader, you take that mantle. And
so is that something we in the church, in the institutionalized church, let's call it, impose on people. The wrong, the right, guilt, innocence, that judicial, it stems from Greek, historically, Constantine changing the shape of Christendom. Do pastors, leaders, Christian missiologists, myself included, hopefully not, impose that upon people? Is that something we should be opposing?
Pattern. Well, it's just the pattern of how we talk. And I think it's actually healthy when it comes to when you talk about like, let's say, philosophy, right? Someone brings in a paper, they have this thing, and then the whole class just slashes them down until you get to the real core of things. And
sounds like Twitter to me.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like people who are in like theologians. I think theologians are used to it, but I think one thing that really helped me this past season, I worked as associate pastor in the States for about a year, just working with normal Americans.
Yeah. And
it was really eye-opening because I was like, oh, being a missionary, I'm just really, and a lot of my friends are missionary. It's like almost all my friends are pastors. Because a missionary and a pastor, you talk the same. But layman people don't talk different.
Yeah.
And so like when relating, and if I'm just with them, it was like, oh, let's talk about your farm. Let's talk about your job. Let's talk about you getting, let's talk about what really matters to you. And it's just kind of like, wow, this is a parallel to people in Thailand. Well, it
seems like it's a parallel in many ways I should say a contradiction. We have this backdrop of guilt, innocence, right, wrong, right, in the Western culture. Yeah. And yet you're saying culture is shifting and changing so much. You were just talking about movies and how it shapes our worldview. And
So one of my things that I teach is observational learning. And so because you're not really taught that in school.
Observational learning? No, that doesn't sound like a hot topic.
No, you don't, you're taught by, someone wrote a book, study that book, whatever they said, memorize it, you got a test. Where I say, when you have the people who are really good at business, you drop them into an area, they look around, they know where to put the store.
Understanding the demographics.
So it's like there's a term called meta competency. So you come in, you understand, you just all this information is just coming in, and you're trying to sell your product, or you're trying to put a Starbucks somewhere. And they get their information somehow.
Well, you need to understand the milieu and the demographic and the landscape.
Or somebody who's, there was a story of a kid. He was, he's older now, but he's a great businessman. But he told about when he was young, he would just watch the street. And he would watch people's eyes, where people's eyes would go. And then he would set up his baseball card stand where people's eyes went. Wow, and I said, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, so when I teach, I said, this is one of the things. When you go into a new culture, just watch the movies. Whatever's the most popular movie gives you a good picture of people's worldview.
So you're telling me to watch a bunch of ghost movies here in Thailand?
Yeah, in Thailand, the top movies it's Halloween all year round.
What do you mean by that?
It's ghosts. You have horror films, even comedies here in Thailand. It's really people love the fear factor. And it's
it's probably the fear factor plus the alignment of the spiritual and the tangible touching up and brushing up against itself at all times.
Yeah,
it's not separated, right?
No, and it's I've watched a few horror films here, and they do horror films. They do it really horrifically. But in the States, let's say the 1990s, maybe early 2000s. Even now, the top TV shows you'll find lawyer shows or cop shows, CSI, stuff like that, which is not it's not horror, it's not like spiritual, but what it talks about is like right and wrong. Justice is very important, so that is something that people relate to, And so, but going back this time, I was like, wow, America has changed. Because watching the movies.
Well, you grew up.
I grew up in American Samoa, but and so we are like everywhere, every other culture where America runs
the media,
like hip hop. Hip hop is like culture.
Yeah.
Hollywood is culture, everything that comes out of there kind of sets a standard for global culture, I guess. And so growing up in the 90s, I was like, oh yeah, Lethal Weapon, you got Bad Boys, you got, this is the movies that I went to, and my first movie was Bad Boys. Will Smith, I'm excited. The new one's coming out.
Will Smith, man. Hey, I used to listen to Will Smith when he was DJ Jazzy Jeff in the Fresh Prince.
Oh, Fresh Prince? Yeah. So
parents just don't understand.
Yeah. But, the thing, conversations-wise, when it comes to leadership, your goal in the States is, we want to reach the people. Everybody comes to that same conclusion. But one of the things is the things are just changing so quickly. People are into yoga. People are into meditation. And when I started watching the movies, Harry Potter, you got Top, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, all very...
It's much more metaphysical.
People are more comfortable with unknown.
Yep.
People are more comfortable with the mysterious.
And there seems a lack of closure in all these stories.
Which leaves mystery.
Yeah, the door is always ajar at the very end. You're like, oh, what if, or what could have?
Yes.
Is?
And that has happened very quickly. Things the millennial generation, where they're men now, they're grown up. So that's who we were. Everybody was up in arms. Oh, how are we going to reach the millennials? Yeah. I was like, you know what? Movies are always going to be around. Art is always going to be around. And what is popular in the culture, wherever culture you are, it doesn't matter if you're in the Islamic, if you're in Hindu, Buddhist, West, Europe, whatever is hot is what's running through people's mind.
Wow, yeah. So your opinion, and I think this is going back to why they called you the Buddha guy. The reason I really like to have you on the show today, because we're talking about contextualization in many ways, although we're talking a little bit more broad because that can be pigeonholed. But I love how you're that observer. I can kind of see you with a bald head walking around
I think now people I just did a teaching on contextualization, and I opened up with, I don't even know what contextualization is. It's a really fancy word, and the root word is context. And to me, it's the best way I can explain it is if you watch a show an old show 24, previously on 24, bum 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 bum. I was like,
that's the context.
That's context.
Okay.
And so and usually you're using contextualization is used for studying the past.
I see. Okay, so but when you're talking about contextualization in this context, you're talking about missions work, trying to present the gospel in an adequate way for the hearers to understand.
Yeah, and the thing is, contextualization, I think, is also one of those words that's just a stumbling block. People don't understand it. You're always continuously trying to explain it, and only Christians use it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, not only Christians, missiologists, like you said.
Yeah, I just said it's a Christian term that has been taken on, but only other group that uses it is coders.
Okay.
And so I said, the better way to look at it is, my personal approach on it, it's a measurement tool.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
It brings metrics. It brings, metrics is a very businessy term, but it brings a measurement to how good are we doing. And so
so let's pause right there. Yeah. Because you're talking about
generalizations, I know.
I can deal with that. But I paused you there because Thailand, we've had, 200 years of missionary work. Okay. Mm-hmm. Population 69 million. Mm-hmm. Christian population maybe 0.8, probably pushing 1%.
Nice.
You like that? I know my numbers.
I just remember it was at 0.000 something.
No, it's probably 0. Well, recently in Phetchabun, in the middle of the country, there's this major revival that's spearheaded by local guys, totally indigenous, no foreigners. In fact, there's a couple foreigners who are set up as kind of the gatekeepers to keep foreigners away. So it continues to remain indigenously led. I like that.
That's awesome.
But so the numbers are shifting, but it's less than 1% Christian in Thailand. 200 years of Christian missionary work. Yeah. That's the metric of how we're doing. I would say, if you're looking in the business sphere or arena, that's horrible. Yeah, we're not selling a product.
That's not good. And then when I first got here, the main thing, I was just gung ho and
When was that, by the way?
I was 1999.
Wow. Okay, going back in time a little
almost
bit.
20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So, 20 years. It's been awesome.
How old you were? Like
I'm
33 at the time?
I'm 37 now, and so it was like, when I was 17, I came here.
Cool.
And
That's what I was
young, you're young, and just remember an older missionary just sat me down because I was really like, we're gonna, save the world, save Thailand. People are gonna know Jesus, and he said, Ben, you got to slow down.
And you didn't like to hear that, did you?
Well, and I respected him, because he took me under his wing.
Everybody needs that mentor.
Yeah, and just said it takes an average of 7 years for a Buddhist to come to Jesus because their hearts are hard. And I was like, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear it. I say I don't believe that. I believe in the verse where Jesus says the harvest is ready. Period. They're just ready.
I thought you liked lack of closure, buddy.
Well, they're just ready, and it's just the. Well, they're ready. I guess we don't got the right tools yet.
Okay, that's a better way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So, has your perspective changed, or you still feel adamantly about that?
I believe everybody. I think at least in my how I look at it is I don't believe everybody's gonna, because free will. People can. I don't think everybody's going to follow Jesus,
Sure.
even if they have an experience of God, even if they get healed. There's plenty of people in the Bible that's walked away.
Yeah.
And so I said, to me, 10%. Like 1 out of 10 of people walking around and I bump into and they could tell me their testimony, I'm like, I think that's a reached area. Then you move on.
If Thailand was 10%, that would be a reached area.
It'll be reached.
Yeah.
And then you go to Laos.
Yeah.
And then you go to
Cambodia, Nepal. And
right. So like to me, people are ready. It's just, to me, I don't know what God is doing, but I just like, to me, it's really, how do you introduce somebody to somebody else in a comfortable way?
Yeah, I laugh because I can see how many times we've, would you like to pray right now and ask Jesus to come into your heart? And the images that come up on the Buddhist mindset, the backdrop.
You have no idea what is going on in there. They're just like, it's strange.
It sounds so strange.
Yeah.
So contextualization, metrics. I mean, okay, the reason, again, going back to the Buddha guy, I know it's a little derogative and weird, but I kind of gravitate towards it. That's why I wrote about you in the mind of a missionary, because you had these experiences talking to people. Yeah. And maybe they'd get saved. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but then they'd still be wearing their Buddhist amulet. Mm-hmm. They'd still go to the temple, maybe burn joss sticks, pray for lucky. Yeah. But you were not deterred by that. It seemed like you were kind of comfortable with it.
Well, that's what I meant by metric. Is like everything that happens is information.
Okay.
So I'm like, did you feel like you pray? I prayed like in Jesus' name, Holy Spirit, give him an experience. Just wait. Did you feel that? The guy's like, yeah. I don't know what this is. It feels hot. It's like, no, that's him. And then he would go back and you still have his amulet. Like, oh, well, I guess that wasn't strong enough.
That's what you're thinking.
Yeah. So I'm like, to me, when it comes, a lot of this is like through asking questions. I went to this a temple here called Wat Umong, and it's an English-speaking monks there, and one of the professor monks. I guess that's what they would call him, but he would teach at the university, the monk university. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know there was one. And so we went in there with me and my buddy, and I said, hey, we are believers, we're followers of Jesus, but we want to know everything that you can teach us on Buddhism. So after a couple of months, he started repeating himself, and he would just not let us talk. He would just like, okay, now the first precept, blah, blah, blah. He'd go and then after 3 months, we would just come every Tuesday and Thursday on the dot, and for 3 hours, we just sit there.
Wow,
legs were like completely asleep by the end of it.
You're sitting crisscross.
Yeah, crisscross, and then moving around every so often because I'm not very flexible. And then he would just keep talking and keep talking. And then in the end, he's like, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "Yes," because he would start talking about the reality of the world. And he started talking about karma and how, even the shape of the temple is the picture of the picture of karma. So you have this shape. It's like a mountain, and so the top of the mountain is nirvana, and then earth, or like right now, reality now is like one of the hells, and then you have like hundreds, like 400 something other hells, and you go up and you go down. You got heavens up here. You go up and you go down based on merit, based on righteousness.
Okay.
And you go down based on karma. So you have to pay for your karma. And I said, well, where does the Creator live?
And how did he respond to that?
He's like, what do you mean? He's like, because no one's ever asked him, oh yeah, does he live in here? Does he live here? Does he live here? I never asked him, do you believe in a Creator?
You just assumed that's part of the equation.
So where does he live? And he just like, well, he just thought about it. And it's like, oh, he doesn't live in here. He lives outside. Oh, he lives outside karma. Oh, I got it. So if he was to come in, where would he come in? Would he come in here? Would he come through the nirvana? Where would he come through this? Like, he just said, he can come in however he wants to. It's like, oh, okay. So this is Earth? Yeah. All right. And you're saying that everybody got to pay for their karma, right? So yeah. It doesn't matter how much good you do. Yeah. Oh, cool. And can anybody be born without karma? It's like, yeah. I mean, you'd be called a Buddha. It's like, wow. It's interesting. Left it at that.
You're just purely that observer, but you're kind of prodding a little bit.
Well, I mean, I took my examples from Paul because
asking questions.
He goes straight up. Men of Athens, you are religious in every way. In Acts
17.
Yeah, Acts 17. And he goes, and many people don't know this, but that was a compliment.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, they were like Disneyland. They had every single thing. He's like, you guys are the most religious. You got every god. And they're like, finally, some recognition from you guys, you Jews coming in here, your monotheistic thinking. Come on now. Yeah, we are. And he just like, you give them, you recognize what they're striving for.
He was that observer as well.
And then he said, and I've been studying very carefully all of your things of worship.
And they start to go, oops, uh-oh.
No, there's like, good. Yeah, you should go look at it. And I found something. It was all positive.
Yeah.
The whole conversation was positive. And I found something, the God of the unknown God, we have a connection. Let me tell you about him.
Yeah. That entry point. How we rarely do that in our exploration and ministry of the gospel.
One of my questions is like, is there curiosity? Is God curious? Is there curiosity in heaven?
Okay, yeah.
Like I just throw all these different pictures because we think in images.
Yes.
Like our whole world is images. And I'm like, is curiosity? I start with, is there any curiosity in heaven? And some people say, no. Why? Because you know everything. How boring. And then I go, is curiosity evil?
I love how you're really challenging my paradigm here.
Yeah, because you cannot even get into I'm almost like trying to, like when in the book of Acts when they said, when Paul presented, hey, Gentiles are coming, people who aren't Jewish, people who don't follow the law, people who aren't, circumcised, people who aren't, wearing their yarmulkes and not us.
Yeah.
They're coming.
The others.
There's proof. And then, they're like, all the Jewish, believers like, well, they're not Jewish. Okay, well, we therefore say we will not hinder. We will not hinder. We will not make any blocks. We will not put anything in front of them and of the Gentile to meet Jesus. All right, cool. But what I feel like I'm doing now is I'm trying to even take away the blocks from Christians to meet a non-believer.
How rarely do we step beyond our own boundaries and have it like a unbelieving friend or buddy? We think we're in the world but not of the world, right? That's a popular phrase, but we've got to be sent into the world.
I think this is personally, I'm just like, wow. I had to deal with this, long ago. There is a prejudice against non-believers.
When you talk about prejudice, obviously you're going to be hitting on a topic that's prevalent right now.
Yeah.
We're talking racism, talking about anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
white savior complex.
It's a very common
what's the
trait
in humanity?
In humanity. And I think it's we don't like non-believers.
How dare you? How dare you? Did you just say that, or did you think that?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you mean by the prejudice?
I like to say it how it is, because to me.
Okay, I take back my "how dare you" then.
Because to me, you can't solve a problem without actually saying the problem. I like people like that's the like. How many non-believer friends you got? Who do you hang out with?
Yeah.
Why do you hang out with them? I can tell you why. Don't be unequally yoked. Like, yeah, we got some teachings that we got streamlined into. You hang out in church all day long, only Christians, and you know what? What are you doing when you see a non-believer? How uncomfortable do you feel?
Awkward moment.
I'm like, yeah. And when you see people, not believers, hanging out with non-Christians, what do you think?
Well, I think that's why they called you the Buddha guy. Here you are walking and going under
Loving
the teachings.
it.
Yeah, going under the teachings of these elder monks. But for the whole purpose of exploring the full picture, the understanding of their worldview, so as to impart gospel.
And I would go with 2 by 2, try to stay biblical.
Sure.
And me and my buddy, we would like hash it. I was like, I mean, did you feel like that was wrong? Like, it was like it can be a traumatic. These are traumatic experiences, and I didn't realize I was some short-term teams. I was like, that people would give them to me, and I was like, oh, all right, let's go.
That's where
and we would go straight to the temple, and we just sit there. And people would come in and out, and then sometimes there was holidays, people were chanting, It was loud, there was incense everywhere, and I would just go quickly to everybody, it's like, how do you feel?
And I just recently had a team who was here. We went to some Buddhist temples, and it was Wat Chedi Luang downtown here in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
And but it was cordoned off there. You couldn't walk up to a certain point, and they were chanting. It was some sort of festival.
Yeah.
And I'm typically not as sensitive as, say, my wife. I don't mind being in that context, but they just felt that icky, yucky, this horrible feeling.
And this is where majority of my training, or the training I provide for people, is almost 99% of it is about them.
About the people who are going?
Yeah, it's not about the non-believer. It's really about them, because it's like facing yourself. Because I think contextualization is an internal thing too. Like, there's an external contextualization and an internal contextualization, because I'm a multicultural. My dad's from Texas, a white guy from Texas. My mom's Samoan. Grew up in American Samoa.
Live in Thailand.
I live in Thailand. I'm multilingual. And you cannot know your own culture unless you compare it to another culture.
True, okay.
And so in the same way, you cannot really know your belief system unless you are constantly hit with another set of belief systems, and you have to continuously do that. But if you're in a safe bubble and you know everyone around you says and talks and acts the same way, safety is priority for you.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the priority of many believers. We think that Jesus came, God incarnate, heaven to earth, leaving the most exclusive gated community in all of the universe, so that we could be nice and comfortable.
And to
doesn't
me,
sound right to me.
Yeah, and I can come a long way, and I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Well,
in a sense,
people are all on their own journey.
Yeah, and I to me, I was like, I think God accommodates it. To me, it's like, well, what? And because the one big problem is everyone has preference. So and that's not a real problem, that's just reality. And so I had this idea back in the day where I'm like, I'm just going to convince everybody, really evangelizing my own people evangelizing Christians to say, no, we got to go out. We got to evangelize. And I know a lot of people peg me as the evangelist, put me in that group. And that group sounds very harsh.
Yeah. Did you have like a placard on, say turn to burn? How
No,
far did you go?
just, you're trying to convince people that we need to reach out. We need to reach out. You're always talking about evangelism,
which is true.
Yeah, it's true.
But there might be a better way to.
But I didn't realize the bigger problem is like, how do we solve the main problem?
What's the main problem?
The main problem is Jesus. Jesus had a problem. And his main problem was we were disconnected from God. So he came in, died on the cross, died for 3 days, rose again, and reconnected humanity to God forever, because he's man and God forever. And then he said to the 12 and to the rest, he said, now go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of Father, Son, blah, 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 and make disciples of all nations now. And I think everybody who's a follower of Jesus would agree. That's the main problem. But then you have another set of problems, which is we have a church. And so what's the main goal? To have a lot of people in church. Okay? And what else? So that, keep the lights on. Okay? So we have money and you have people. All right? So let's say you take that and you make that excellent. And you make that problem like you are the best at solving that problem.
Fog machines, LED lights everywhere.
10,000 people. $10 million a week.
Okay.
You've really solved that problem. But how big that problem consumes you. And so then the other problem of reaching the world becomes part of the list of the problem you're trying to solve. And so one of the ways to solve it is you have missionaries, right? That's how you solve the world problem. But now, hey, just, we could just do local missions.
Because everyone's a missionary, right?
And everybody's a missionary, and everybody's a Christian, everybody's a priesthood. Yeah. And you know what? We'll just reach our city. And let's go, Christ for the city, Christ for the city, our city, city for Christ.
And then you sing, you're the God of the
and
city.
You're God of the city, and that's missions now. And I think God accommodates that.
I appreciate your candidness in looking at this, because I'm sure you've come full circle or in many different experiences.
Yeah.
Probably bitter, angry, dejected about this issue or these issues, but you seem to be at peace with it.
I appreciate the angst, because I think you have to go through it. You have to pick a side. You have to fight through it. And then you realize, man,
it's much more nuanced.
Even like the Old Testament, I was like, I started reading the Old Testament, like, wow, these people were really bloodthirsty. And how God accommodated them. How God slowly weaned the whole sacrifice thing off of them until it came to Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's like Jesus on the cross is the full revelation of who God is. And everything else is kind of a shadow. And it's like, finally, now we know who God is. Because everybody thought he was a warrior, thought he was bloodthirsty. And it's like, wow, how much God accommodates us.
Yes.
And I just felt like this real grace. That's like, what grace is just like, it doesn't matter. Like, he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
And one thing, I hung out with mediums, like here.
Mediums,
yeah. And
what do you mean? Describe mediums.
Well,
fortune
the
tellers?
first time I met a medium was I joined a traditional Thai band.
Okay.
And as a young man, because I was like looking for answers, and I thought culture was the answer. So if I knew their culture songs, if I could sing a culture song, if I could say it in their cultural way, I was already thinking this way. I was never trained, but because I'm from Samoa,
yeah, and
I have
there's
a real strong Samoa, real strong way of Samoa, and that's how we express ourselves as Christians. And so I was like, if it's a Thai way, because Thai people are very, in Thailand, you're proud to be Thai.
Yeah.
You've never been conquered. You have an amazing history. It's great. I think it's a good thing to be proud of your nation. But I joined them, and it's all older people, grandpas, grandmas of the village, and they're like, "Why are you joining?" Oh, I just love the song. I just love the salah. I can play it.
I do. I learned how to play it. It's called the erhu in Chinese.
Oh, erhu. Okay.
Yeah, the erhu, and I learned how to play that.
And we went on tour.
Pipa. Gourd windpipe.
So we went on tour. We were on a float. I was in the middle. They make sure I'm the big, huge guy, like young guy in the middle playing the song. And
dude, I want to see photos of that somewhere.
Yeah, there is photos, and I'm wearing because I'm tall, and they gave me and it's like shorts. They were shorts.
Oh no!
And my belly, it's like up here. My belly. I was like, it was funny.
Your short skirts are on.
But after practice one day, we were chatting and eating some snacks and stuff, and this little kid walked in, and he was like wearing like underwear, and he just looked strange, and he was just like looked like he was maybe 7, 8, and he just walked, and he had his thing in his eye. Or like a look in his eye, and he just started walking straight like to the leader of our group, and everybody just like was like this. Everybody was like this. Yeah, and he just sat like a few inches away from his face and just started telling him what to do in his little kid voice, and just stood up, walked out, and everybody just acted like it was nothing. And I was like, who is that? Oh, he's like, that's the medium of our village.
Okay, this is a completely different picture of what I had in mind when you said medium. I'm thinking fortune teller, you go in.
No, so this is where I was like, because I was really into the Buddhist way of bridging the gospel, but I realized most people don't even believe in it. Most people don't know even though Thailand is Theravada Buddhism, which is the closest to Prince Siddhartha's original thought, as they say. It's not Tibetan Buddhism, right? It's not the Buddhism we have in China, which is mixed with Confucianism. But still, it's very otherworldly. Well, the idea, even like my assumptions of things were so Greek, because there is not a debating culture in Buddhism. So people aren't talking theology. What people are doing are just chanting
and praying for lucky
and just reading text.
On maybe the layman's terms in Buddhism, I went with a friend who took us. This was
layman's term, probably.
Well, I'm thinking. She just said, I want to take you to the Buddhist temple. We were here for 6 months. We've been here for 6 years now, but 6 months or so, and we went into the temple. I'd been to a few, of course. There's 560 or 600 temples in Chiang Mai alone.
It's hard to count
every corner. But she took us in, and I'm trying to be respectful. It's clearly a religious ceremony, and Kara, my daughter's running around barefoot. She's just playing, and our friend hands me her phone and said, "I'm going to go talk to the elder monk and bow before him and pray for luck. And so can you take a photo of me when I'm doing that?" And I was very staunch and aiming my camera, and she goes down, bows before him, puts her head on the ground, looks up, and then goes and poses for a picture with her fingers up. I'm like, so I snapped this photo, and it was this bizarre introduction to not really that deeper religious, pious hunger for true religion, but it was like, I need a good Instagram image. And so there she was, and she did her deed, and it was done. Karma was appeased, perhaps in some small way, and then, but it gave me this glimpse into what you're saying, that not everybody is just deeply.
Well, like there's this thing called the Sinha. The Sinha is just it's basically a mirror law based on like even 10 Commandments. You don't kill, don't be drunk. There's just different things like that. Not many people know, like, do you know the Sinha? Some people just get to number 3. They don't even know the full Sinha. So in many ways, it's not what is said, it's what's practiced. That's what people believe. And so my observation was, we're Buddhist. They're Buddhist. They're Buddhist. But are they? What does that mean?
Well, especially when this little kid, medium, walks in. And what happens after that? I mean.
He said, I forgot what he said to the instructions, but I was like, but at the time I was like a teenager, 19 or something, And I mean, as a young person, this is the struggle. When you're trying to reach an older person, you're trying to introduce and share something with them, they'll treat you younger.
Yes.
So I was a student, and I just felt like he was never, like, these guys were, all that grandma and grandpas just treated me as a grandkid. Like, so I was frustrated because I was like, I wanted them to really respect what I had to say and like really listen. Like, this will change your life. But they're like, oh, you're just so cute. Oh, you're not up, you little. And that was my frustration with. I was like praying my prayers, and when this kid came in, I just heard the voice of God. Just like God just spoke to me. He's like, it doesn't matter who you are. It matters who you represent. And if you have enough power, like, people will bow.
Yeah. Wow.
And I said, because look at this kid. It goes to show. It was a kid in underwear. But because he represented a Lord, a power, and he said, and you have the greatest of all power.
Yeah.
So you just got to tap into it.
How often we don't even operate in that power.
And God is so accommodating.
You like that term, accommodating.
Yeah.
It sounds negative in many ways to me.
It does, but it is so necessary.
Okay.
Because I think, like, for instance, what it does is just, it actually gives you the idea that preference is okay.
Personal preference, human preference.
Mm-hmm. And whatever you choose, I love you anyway. Like, that's what
it sounds like grace when you say it like that.
But grace has almost a lack of meaning.
Yes, it's overused, abused. So God accommodating humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds a little sketchy to me.
So here's one grace coming through. So here's one thing. It's like the verse: neither depth nor light, nor principality, nor power, nor things present, nor things to come will ever separate my love from you. And then the picture of the cross. This God, all loving, powerful God, on the ugliest thing possible, because he wants to have a relationship with us. That's accommodation.
Yes, yeah.
Accommodation is, I know everything's ugly, but it doesn't matter how ugly things get. I will always love you.
Wow. Yeah.
And so
that's a better picture of grace to me than using the term grace.
Yes. And so that's why accommodation is really hard in the context of right and wrong. Because right and wrong, politicking, there is no accommodation.
Well, if you're going back to the 90s again and you're watching Cops, someone's got to suffer. You got to pay.
Yeah. And it's, I think where you see it a lot is like in these, like, you know, maybe these families, like, or like the Italians, or like, they're just like, oh yeah, you know, family, like, it doesn't matter what happened to Vinny, you know, we just gonna, like, there is this picture of these moms just like, who love their kids no matter what, who visit them in jail.
Yeah.
And then you have the picture of maybe the opposite of kind of family. So like, the accommodation is not saying, I agree with you. It's saying, no matter how ugly it gets, I love you.
Yeah, I ain't leaving.
And this is another thing I said, one of the questions like I've been thinking about, it's like, why are there so many miracles in this area and not here? Why is the miracles not happening? I said, the miracles can happen in the States, and they are in certain groups. Like you have the Bill Johnson group.
Yeah.
You have, and it's because the mindset have shifted and they are asking. Because God, like, so back to hang out with mediums. So one of my things back in those days was like, I was so gung ho. I was like, this works, guys. Like, I can lead. I was so audacious. I said, I can lead someone to Jesus in 3 minutes.
After that experience.
No, I mean, this is fast forward. Forward. Okay. I'd gone through church planting, movement training.
I see. Okay.
I went through, a few teams broke up. We had like 40 house churches in 4 months. Like, it was just, and
wow, what 40 house churches in 4 months?
Yeah, through pure T4T CPM training. T4T is a book. My mentor Steve Smith, he passed away.
Yeah, just recently.
Condolences to the family. Man. Love that guy. And Inkai, who was a big partner of his, and they both have books, T for T. We took just pure that, no contextualization, anything, and pure people coming to Jesus.
Rapid multiplication of churches.
We didn't even get past. We didn't get past first generation. We didn't get past
I see. Okay.
We stopped there because we got stuck at discipleship. We got stuck at discipleship because there was a ton of creativity in evangelism, but once people start becoming believers, it just became like we have to teach them how to read. They have to be, but these guys, they don't read. These guys don't. So Uncle does not read. Uncle is a farmer. Uncle didn't go to school.
Yeah.
You could tell how hard it was on their brain. But I mean, that didn't work out. But at this point, I was like, you know what? This is work. People are ready. I promise you. You just name the place and time. Doesn't matter where it is. I will lead somebody to Jesus in 3 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty audacious, especially in the Thai context.
Yeah, I said anywhere. And I said especially, and this is my context, I said find the one who's the most religious. Like look for lots of incense. Look for like big, huge idols. I don't want any, I want somebody who's really strong. So I'll really show you. And so my friend called me up. He's like, all right, man, let's go. I said, all right, name, place, and time. And we went to his village, a village nearby, and then we stumbled upon a medium possession party.
A medium possession party.
Yeah. So no.
So these are the kind of things that we only talk about on missions, Paul. So generally, you don't have. Oh yeah, I stumbled upon a medium possession party. When's the last time you said that phrase?
It was so cool because I was like, oh, that was, and he's like, bro, what was going on? Like it was just so weird.
Yeah.
Everybody was weird. That was great. It was great for me because especially if you have a attitude of curiosity.
Is that necessary for a cross-cultural missionary or someone who's living on mission?
Let's put it this way. How much information can you retain if you're not curious?
This is a trick question.
I don't know. Like I said, if you're not curious about information, how much are you going to learn? Like
you learn what you know. You know what you know through experience.
Yeah, to me, it's like almost like you have to have a positive mindset to grow and to learn. And like to me, the epitome of a disciple is learning.
Yes.
And if you stop learning, you stop being a disciple.
Therefore, curiosity
is essential to learning. If you are not curious, what's the opposite of curious? Closed-minded. So if you're closed-minded, nothing comes in.
Yeah.
It stays. It's a concrete mindset, or you have a growth mindset. And so the only way you flip it again. That how do you produce a curious? You have to have no fear.
And when I wrote The Mind of a Missionary, wanted it to be not only an emotional kind of picture of missions, and so I studied a lot about psychology, and neurology, and neurological responses, talking a lot about how the brain is malleable. You have these experiences, and yet the malleability of the brain actually retells and reshapes the story over time as you need it to, therefore, to get rid of vicarious trauma or some traumatic experience. You can retell it in light of, in our context, Jesus was there, or God knew, or he is in control, and therefore, you're retelling the brain malleability. And so you can explore and be curious and take in all these new ideas.
Yet it is there's in 1 Corinthians 8, 9, and 10, it talks about should you eat food sacrificed to idols. And it talks about
that's something we don't ever talk about.
So basically,
but we do it in our context.
So
right?
the key phrase, if you read it, go ahead and read it. But focus on the word conscience.
Okay.
So that this is what Paul was talking about this is a conscience issue. And there are people who have strong conscience and those who have weak ones. And he was saying to the ones who have strong conscience, hey, you have strong conscience, because you know that there is no other God other than God. And of course you can eat the food. But because your brother with weak conscience doesn't know that and he thinks that he's eating it out of love for him, don't eat it. Cool. And it's like, so that means you give another idea of metrics, another measurement. How strong is your conscience? Mm-hmm. And then when you feel bad and icky, what is that? That's your conscience growing or hurt.
So you're saying taking in all this new information, the curiosity should be tempered through the lens of godliness.
I don't know.
Maybe you wouldn't pinpoint it, probably, right?
Knowing what I like to do is I like to help people verbalize what's happening to them.
Okay.
So when you go, like you're talking about your team that went to the temple and they feel icky.
Yeah.
They need to verbalize what's happening inside them.
Yes.
What's happening inside you is your conscience is expanding.
Yeah.
So you're really like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong? What do they need? They need to know something. So what I like to do as I go to the scripture, I say, who's the greatest of all? Who is above all principalities, powers, and demons? It's like, should you be afraid?
Yeah. You're asking this to your team.
To my team, and because this is what they need.
Yes.
They need knowledge and to expand, for their conscience to be stronger.
The way you talk is unlike most Christians that I talk to.
Okay. Is that a good thing?
I personally really dig it because you're talking about consciousness expanding. You're talking about, it seems to me that people could err on the other side and syncretism occurs, and so
I'm glad you brought that up, syncretism.
Because, should we go so far into contextualization or allowing our conscience to expand until we can accept all these things? I guess probably it's just the terminology you're using. But it can easily be seen like, wow, yeah, he is the Buddha guy. But I see a difference. I
think there's a lack of to me. The other thing was there is a lack of language to talk about these things because and so like, yes, I am making things uncomfortable for a lot of people, but because I can't use the language that's given, I can't use to express what's happening, because grace, like a lot of the one of the things that I even say measuring, measurement. That's why I say contextualization is a measurement tool. You measure weight of words. How do you measure words? It's meaning. How heavy is this meaning? Is it, like, for instance, grace?
Yeah.
Does it have really heavy meaning? How do you know it's heavy meaning? It means there's a clear picture.
Well, it had heavy meaning during Spurgeon's time. Let's talk about turn of the 20th century. Grace was strong concept, I think.
Okay, great.
But now grace is pretty sketchy,
or even like
nebulous.
Even the word love.
Oh, well, that's even more.
Like, I read in a I think it was a urban or some kind of dictionary that's not like the Webster's, but one of the definitions was love. A extreme positive opinion about.
Wow. Okay, that doesn't sound like Webster.
But no, it was like more like an urban dictionary. But I was like, if you actually start looking at people's actions and the way they teach about love, a lot of it could be sounding like be positive.
Yeah.
I just have a positive opinion about my.
Yes. Yes.
Do you not love me?
Yeah.
Do you not have a positive opinion about me all the time?
Yeah. You're giving off good vibes, brother. So
no, like any criticism could be shown. There is this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't love the church. You don't love my church. You don't love me.
You have a toxic personality.
Yeah, you're toxic. You're not being positive at all times.
So you're saying we don't have enough terminology or verbiage, perhaps in.
Well, there is verbiage.
Yeah.
There is verbiage.
But they're used when you talk about meditation, meditative. This is what all David talks about in the Psalms.
Yeah.
I meditate day and night.
Meditate like now you just say I focus a lot.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's a picture of focus. Mm-hmm. That has a heavy word. I know what focus looks like. I don't know what grace looks like. I don't really know what love looks like.
Yeah.
So like I'm
so you're exploring.
Switching. I'm contextualizing.
Yes.
Even in English.
Yes.
Like one of the new the big shifts in. I don't like to use the word love because the new scientific word for love is emotional attachment. Well, it's not very new. It actually transformed the Western society. Do you know, like back in the 50s, you couldn't, if your kid was sick, you as a parent were not allowed to see them in the hospital.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because child rearing back then was children were not seen or heard. Like, and so like now if they saw people here, like people are like this, oh, they're just coddling them. But it's like because emotional attachment theory was brought into society. And so attachment theory, like, so how, people say, like one of the conversations I had with a pastor was, well, how do you measure growth in a Christian, personally? Because you can't measure love. I said, of course you can. You can measure love. It's like, how? Pain.
Pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, if you define love as emotional attachment is glue. Attachment.
Yeah.
But it's emotions, right? So Elmer's glue, that was kind of pipe glue.
Yeah.
And then you got like, the concrete glue, flesh and blood coming off.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds
lovely. If you love somebody and they're gone, however much pain you feel is how much love you have.
Wow. Yeah.
And so
there's your metric for you, everybody.
There's a metric. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a metric. And
I've often said that it's hard to, in our context, I've been a missionary for 22, 3 years. That's the first time I've said I've been a missionary in some time. I generally don't use that term.
You are on mission, man. You're a purpose-driven person.
Well, there you go. So that's terminology I typically
You got goals.
Yes, you have been reading Max Lucado / John Maxwell, it sounds like.
I read everybody.
But, gosh, you just made me lose my train.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My new brother-in-law, Joey Lovestrand. Shout out, Joey.
Woohoo.
I went back to the States for my sister's wedding, and he's like, Ben, you're like the master of free association. Like you just connect things out of randomly, like.
I like that. So you reminded me, by the way. Thank you for that. A little rabbit trail brought me back.
Yeah.
I've always said, after more than 2 decades of missionary work, it's hard to calculate intangibles. And many times I have thought about my missionary journey in life and ministry in intangibles, right? There's spiritual things taking place. It's not monetary. It's not buildings. And so it's been hard to calculate at times, or what is the growth?
Verbalize how I changed, or how you...
Am I making a difference in the world? After 2 decades, have I wasted my life going to China, going to Thailand? So it's been hard to calculate intangibles, but I love how you're saying love, pain, joy, grace, all these things, they are
you can
measurable.
Like you can know, like doctors can know if a child has a emotional attachment disorder based on their trauma. Like if a kid is traumatized, they need emotional attachment to heal. They need love to heal. Oh, that sounds biblical. And it's like, wow, there's actual science to it. And it's like a kid crying when the mom's gone is a good sign. A great love story, it's when you see the girl or the guy's like, I love you. Or like when they die, they're crying, they're screaming. It's like when you start to say God is love, then who experiences the most pain?
When he's not there, or when you feel loss of some kind.
If everybody in the world is his kid, like the pain he feels from that separation.
When you said that one phrase right there, we've been talking a lot about maybe a little bit metaphysical, and people are trying to wrap their heads around what we're talking about. But when you just said that one phrase, everyone in the world is his kid, it kind of dumbs everything down and makes sense.
It's a clear picture.
He super loves the world. He does. He loves every nation, tribe, people, color, race, ethnicity.
But the love thing, again, it's like...
And the pain at their lostness.
Right. And so I love the parables Jesus does. He just does parables, just like Dad, son goes, I want everything. You
Is
got
that-
nothing. And he just walks away.
I don't know, what version is that? Because I've never heard it told
Oh,
that
you know,
way.
the message, and then you got the grunting. The grunting version. But
As you said, you were multilingual. Now I know what you mean.
I mean, that's the point. Like everybody's his kid. They're our brother and sister. They just don't know Dad yet.
Yeah.
And Dad misses them so bad. So all of a sudden, this is a clear picture.
Well, that gives a picture of God on mission. When you say God on mission and fulfilling the Great Commission and finishing the task.
Very clinical sounding. Yeah.
I use these terms all the time.
Yeah.
I do it because that's what...
That's what we got. That's what we're given. This is,
But it sounds so much more palpable when you say, God's got a bunch of kids. A bunch of them don't know him yet.
We know him already.
Yeah.
And then we feel, and there's one thing I love about the prodigal son story. I grew up, that was the altar call story.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
Of course, yeah.
It's like, it doesn't matter what you did. Come back to him. The son he did everything. He did the worst of the worst. And then he came back and he repented. And, that actually back in the States, that was one of the stories. And that's how the sermon was crafted towards that. And then I was like, but did he repent?
That was a good question.
I looked at it again and I just looked at the text. What the story was. It was like
it's more like this pig food sucks.
Because I was mulling.
Yeah.
I was mulling on attachment, on pain, and missing people, and crying for people when they're gone.
This is after or before your missionary journey began?
Oh, this was just recently.
Oh, okay. You're a crybaby, I guess.
No, I mean, I struggle. I have emotional attachment disorder too.
I mean, I'm an emotional guy.
My counselor told me, Ben, you should practice missing people. It's like, yeah, you know what?
Practice missing people?
Yeah.
Well,
you need to practice missing. You need to practice missing people. You need to practice feeling pain when people are gone.
I would probably resonate with that as well because I cry on simple movies that I shouldn't be crying on. My daughter makes fun of me.
Disney.
Disney
messes me up, man. They know. I think they understand what love is.
Would you say they contextualize their message very well?
I think that's why they're so successful.
Yeah. Should we emulate Disney's contextualization methods?
I think anybody who's successful knows what they're doing. And so, yes.
Okay, going back then.
Okay, so it's a bit. So
I was going to say going back to, we'll get way back, to missionaries being unsuccessful or not seeing much fruit in Thailand. Maybe we need to change our methods. Maybe we need to explore new ways and routes of presenting the gospel to people so that they can receive it.
Yeah, and I realized the first thing I realize is most people don't have the same problem as people like me or people I represent, the group I represent, because our primary problem is how do we get 10% of Thailand to meet Jesus as our primary problem that we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And then all of your efforts and all your thinking, all your innovation, all your creativity goes into that problem. But when you're talking to somebody else, you have to also. I just realized I have to understand that they may not prefer that problem.
You're talking to people back home?
Other missionaries too.
Well, that's a good way of putting it because there's
maybe
been times when I struggle going back to America, wanting to tell the missionary story about China and unreached villages I've gone to, and it seems they don't care.
Yes, and that's accommodation also, like having a loving attitude and saying, you know what, I'm a bust a nerve just trying to convince you, essentially evangelizing you to saying this is the main problem. Let's focus on this. But I also have to say, you may never prefer that problem.
That's fair enough, yeah.
And then going back to the idea of, if you don't want to feel God, or you don't have an experience, you don't want to, or you're not actively saying that's a problem, like you're not experiencing God, you're not hearing His voice, and you're okay, you prefer just to go to church. God gives accommodates that.
I've never heard missionaries talking about that. Generally, it's like, God doesn't want butts in seats. He wants us out on the mission field. And
I'm transformed. I was that way.
Yeah.
I thought that everyone should, but I didn't have in my God, the God that I followed, my picture that I was following was very
dogmatic, maybe one-faceted, single-faceted.
Yeah, he was kind of mean. In a sense of like, just like this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You were wrong, like more like a little bit
like an angry father, maybe.
Yeah, and there was no idea. I had no comprehension of what giving room for people meant. Like I felt like that's compromising. That's compromising. That's that's you got to draw the line. People need to know what you believe, and if they don't believe it, then you can't hang out with them. I'm like, whoa, this is like I'm mirroring some sort of characteristic of the God that I think is. And I honestly I was like, righteous. You are holy. You are all knowing. So I'm like, does that make me a know-it-all? Self-righteous? Better than you kind of person? I guess so. That's what comes off. But if I'm like, God accommodates me because of the cross, man. Like he lets me be so ugly. And if I don't want to pray to him, and I just like get in through I just accepted Jesus and I go to church, and I have like a little bit of like, it's like to me it's like love is like, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. Like nothing will separate my love from you. And I'm like, I want you to do the same thing back. He wants us to go, neither cancer, nor death, nor I lose my job, nor my family, like anything burns, like Job happens to me, I will never, ever. Like that's what he wants back. But he'll allow us to go, sometimes. I'm like, wow, what a guy.
Yeah. That brings a whole new meaning to grace, man.
That brings a clear picture. Yeah. Like that's where it comes down. I think transformation doesn't happen because the picture's not clear enough. And that's where I like, oh man, like just completely, just really helps me out because I was like, I'm accommodating Buddhists. Like
that's what you're doing when you're contextualizing.
Yeah.
You're accommodating.
Yeah, I'm saying
preferences.
Is this chant? Is that the best way to worship God? No, but God will accommodate it. If you want to sing like that and you want to meet God in that tune, let's do it.
Yeah, I think it should be Jesus culture in the Buddhist temple. What do you think?
Sure. Like to me, it's like, well, if you want to do it in here, sure.
Oceans on loop.
Yeah, oceans, like oceans on there, Lord. I'm like, just take the verse. Okay, that's the only tune you're gonna sing. All right, cool, fine. Like to me, it's like, wow.
I think people's heads are exploding. Like the next time they hear oceans, they're gonna hear Ben.
Like Jones going. I mean, it's like to me, it's like go back to the dad. It's like a dad. What you want to have dinner? What you want to sit down? You want to do it in the temple? What, you want to sing a song? What song do you like? Like I'm like.
When you talk about dad, you definitely put on that Italian accent.
I'm like, no, I'm just like, it's just an excited guy who's just like, I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah.
And he's not going to make you like, no, you're going to sing these songs. No. Like, to me, like you start to change the picture of God. You start to change, then you start to act different.
Man, we are so used to doing that. Shaping God, conforming him into a nice little box so we could label him. He is exactly, if he's not in a box, then we understand his characteristics completely and say this is how he is and he is unchanging. And meanwhile, we live in the elements, the dimensions of space and time. He is so far outside of those dimensions, we have no or little context. To me, when I describe God and when I see him described or his characteristics kind of stated the way he is, yes, it is true. But he is so multidimensional, so multifaceted. It's like you're looking at one facet of this huge diamond.
Well, yeah, there was this one Jesuit priest that used to teach at Chiang Mai University. And he would come and we taught English as a ministry to reach out to university students across the street from Chiang Mai University. And he would come to the coffee shop. And we would just me and my friend would talk to him about, just his thoughts on things. And, we would talk about the names of God. And he said, oh yeah, Yahweh is not really a name per se. It's just a moniker type thing. And he says, but actually he in the Jewish tradition, he said this picture. He said, God puts on names like a coat for us to understand them.
Wow. Okay.
And so I was like, wow.
That's an intriguing visual there.
Yeah. So it's like, he is who he is. But he'll put on El Shaddai.
In this particular instance.
El Ohim, El this, El that.
The healer.
Yeah, El. I mean, back in those days, that's like God of this, God of that. God. So basically, he was trying to share his character. And I think in the same way in the Christians, like right now, modern day, like we're highlighting certain things. And we're highlighting you are separate. You are holy, set apart. So then what does that make our actions do? We start setting ourselves apart. You are righteous, no flaw in you. What does that make us do? We start to try to make our life look like nothing's wrong. Like it's not that it's not true.
No, it is true.
It's
and
just
we're mirroring that characteristic. We're trying to mirror that.
Yeah. And I think like okay.
But we're missing the biggerness of.
Yeah.
We're missing the biggerness of these other multifaceted dimensions. These illuminations that are flashing off different corners.
I actually, one of my main beliefs now is, unless you're not going to really change unless you hang out with non-believers. Like, it's a gift. Like if majority of your friends are non-believers and you're the minority, it's a gift. You start to change a lot. Like all of this change happens because I'm just surrounded by people who don't know Jesus yet, who don't know my dad yet. And I'm like, I'm contextualizing. I'm starting to sort myself out. I'm like, why am I acting that way? Why? Because all of the unnecessary behaviors start falling away. I don't need this. I don't need to be judgmental. I don't need what I need to be.
Well, don't you think though that some people are going to hear this and say, yeah, I want to hang out with unbelievers, but I'm on mission and I'm hanging out with unbelievers so that I can lead them to the truth, and they're on this,
Yeah.
You're taking a different stance. You're poised as kind of this learner, and
it's like, how do I love being around non-believers? Like that's a question. Like, what do you mean? How do you love? Like, just love that they're sinning around me. Love that they're just have no care and they hate Christians. Like, wow, I don't know how. It's like you start to be like Christ.
Yeah. Because
Christ, for the glory set before him, he embraced the cross.
Yeah.
I'm like, you start to love. You start to look at, like, how do you love people? Do they have to be clean? Do they have to be exactly like you?
And then the scripture comes to mind, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So it's this continual working out of who God is and his accommodation for you.
Yeah. So like you start accommodating. How do you accommodate your non-believing friends? Like, well, I guess I can't tell everybody that they can't do that around me.
That's a good start.
I start to make them feel like I love them. How do you do that? Based on their perspective. Did I do something? Am I highlighting right and wrong? Or are they getting the message I love them? But then that's where you start going down this rabbit hole of like transforming, because all of a sudden you go back to Jesus saying, go the Great Commission, like reach all of them now, introduce them, they're my cat. The gateway drug is non-believers. You cannot get it anywhere else.
So we need more unbelieving friends.
Yeah.
And accommodate them
and feel uncomfortable. That's where I'm like, you got verbalizing it.
Yeah.
And you don't do it by yourself, obviously. I mean, that's the reason you go 2 by 2, but you go and you do it, and then you regroup, and you're like, what just happened? Oh, I just felt so uncomfortable. Everybody was wasted. Yeah. Oh my goodness, and you're just like.
Well, the Christian walk, really, despite all our efforts to tailor it and to pretty it up and put filters on it like Instagram, it's raw, it's rugged, it's dirty, and
Which is love.
sloppy jalopy, man.
Yeah, that's the greatest love stories.
Yeah,
the greatest love stories has the biggest obstacles in front of them, the dragon in front of them, the princess, or the
How many do you watch Disney movies? A lot. It sounds like
classic.
But
Right. I mean, you're talking like what's a great love story? A great love story has you overcome everything to get to the one you love.
Yeah.
And that's whatever makes you cry. That's what it is. So that's all. I mean, all that to say when people say, "Oh, you're the Buddha guy," it's like, yeah, I guess you can. But I look at it like, man, this is so much more.
So much more. And I'm glad you said that, because I have never liked you to be painted in that light. I felt a little bit frustrated or angry at the people who might say that to you.
I wasn't at the time, but I was like, it's funny because I'm like, I don't fit in with the Buddha guys anymore.
Well, yeah.
Because
I see you're on this continual journey. And God's, I had no idea we're talking about God accommodating us and therefore us accommodating our unbelieving or Christian friends. I had no idea we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
But I could sense this journey that you're on, call it contextualization or not, that's the term we'd use.
Well, I've listened to conferences in the States that they deal with contextualization for the States, but it's mostly about sermons and
that's called
atmosphere. And that's
called translation.
Yeah. Well,
contextualization.
They say it's contextualization too. And I said, yeah, I could see that because what you're working with is a service. And so and
it touches on that.
Yeah.
It accommodates in some way,
mm-hmm.
right? But there's a depth that God wants to bring us to truly transform us so that we might be transformative.
Yeah.
That we might illuminate the atmosphere into which we go. And if we're going only into light, if we're being sheep among sheep, light in light, it doesn't transform. Yeah. Light in darkness makes a difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an epic. It's almost like what pill you want to take, and it's if you want to stay here, it's fine.
So you do watch more than Disney, it sounds like.
Matrix.
I felt that there.
Yeah, drop what pill you want to take, man, and it's cool. Don't feel bad. If you don't feel comfortable, that's what 1 Corinthians 8, 9, 10 is. Like, you don't feel comfortable, it's fine. Yeah. I love you, and don't bash. Like he even says, like, you guys who know stuff. Stop bashing the little guys, man. Stop bashing the guys that don't know yet. And you guys, actually he was just talking to the guys who knew more. It's just like, you guys have to love more since you know more.
Really, this whole conversation seems like a simple message.
Yeah.
Just accommodate. Love more. Love Jesus. He rubs off on you.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, one of the things I guess I'm really passionate about is like, you can measure your growth. You can achieve goals. Like, spirituality does not have to be vague. You can, and to me, it's like you can measure your, like, if you're like, say you're a pastor, you can start to measure your words, and if they're all like just vague words, scientific words, like those aren't really that heavy. Why don't you use a picture of the dad and a kid, like you said, a dad loves his kids is a stronger image.
A timeless one.
That's a heavier image than the Great Commission, all these different other words.
Nebulous. It's
but they're true. But it's like you want the feeling to be stronger here.
Yeah. That's speaking to me. I need to do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, and it's an ongoing thing because everything's are changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Americans are changing. Like I said, people are very open to experientialism, and to me, it's like that's great because you want peace. One of the fruits of the Spirit's peace. He is peace.
Yeah.
You'll be overwhelmed with peace. You ready? Here we go. Bam.
Putting that 2 and 2 together. Wow, that's contextualization. It sounds so easy when you say it like that.
Yeah. You want peace? Oh, so you were doing yoga. What'd you feel?
Yeah.
Oh, I felt, man, I just felt clear. Oh, clarity. My God's clear. You want to see it? You want to taste?
Yeah.
Oh, taste and see. Lord is good, eh? Well, it's a little taste. If you want something more, it's a little bit more commitment, man.
You sound like you're peddling something now.
I'm just saying. Like, you can have it. I'll give it to you anytime you want.
Yeah, special price for you.
Oh, yeah, special price. Your life.
Drive a hard bargain, buddy. You drive a hard bargain.
I mean, I remember one of my wife's friends, she was talking about, she's into chakras.
What's that?
I don't know. I didn't know what chakras were at the time. I just like, oh, yeah, of course, chakras. Yeah. So the aura, I just felt like this aura that used the chakras and then the crystals, and I was like, yeah, auras, crystals, chakras. Yeah, as I was meditating this morning, the aura of my spirit came upon me and just felt joy, just complete peace and joy. This morning, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Yeah. I can teach you sometime if you want, how to do it. Oh, yeah, that'd be sweet. I'm like, this is one of the things I used to do. With I'm a leader in YWAM with Frontier Missions, and Frontier Missions' primary focus in the YWAM world is church planting. So I used to have these interns. I mean, they've been on the field for 5. They know the language, but they're like really wanting to get into like more serious church planting stuff. So I'd play a game with them, and I say, okay, the game is you can only use the words that come out of their mouth.
Okay, what do you mean?
To share the gospel.
Okay.
You can't use anything else, anything extra, anything they don't know. Only use the verbiage. And I said,
you're basically
educating
their Christian, what do you call it?
So the game, it's a game. I just like, because if it's a game, it's fun, and if it's fun, it's light, and then it's light, you can learn something. And so they were writing scripts. So you're just like, what did they say? So you have to ask them questions to get them talking. And then they started writing scripts. It's like, they say, oh yeah, people say, kitun. Everybody's like, I miss. Oh, they miss their grandkids. They miss their this. They miss their that. It's like, all right, so you got this. Now filter it through the Holy Spirit. Now how can you lead this?
That's great.
How can you? What creative? Is the creator of the world? What script is he going to say to them? Using the parameters of our game. You can't bring anything else. Can't. And he's like, okay. So what they did was they used the idea of men of Athens. You are religious in every way. Basically telling them what they already say to everybody else. We're the most religious people in the world. And then basically they took the same script and they said, you are a good mother. Like, his mom's never heard that ever.
Yeah.
You burn incense because you love your kids. I hear it every day. And you're worried that something bad's going to happen to them. She's like, yeah. And you probably give millions of baht to the temple. I hear you every day, because you love your family. And she's like, yeah. And then they said, that's why we're going to help you. I'm gonna bless you now. And it was just like simple as that.
Hearts open immediately to that.
It was their own story.
Yes, just mirrored back to them
with the help of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
and love. And the Holy Spirit is love. God is love. And I said, that's, people say, I start off, what is contextualization? I don't even know what that is. But I do know what communication and effective communication and telling someone else's story for them, verbalizing something, and also understanding that no one has ever, you'll come to somebody and no one will ever, there's some people walking around. I mean, my father-in-law started an inner city ministry called Abide in Omaha, Nebraska, and we lived there a few times, and there's some of these African American kids, and I knew that the words that are coming out of my mouth, telling them, like, you have a future, like, you're amazing, like they've never heard those words before. Wow. And I said, and it's the same way here. Like, you're going to meet people that have never heard words filled with love.
Well, you're saying that, and generally in Asian context, people, the father, the mother would never say, I love you, those three words.
I love you. And even like, you're more hard on the kid, like, critical on the kid. And
yeah, which expresses love. You've been cooking for them. You've been working all your life. That is expressing love. So you love them. But to hear those positive affirmations is a rare thing. My wife, growing up, she's from the Philippines. She never heard her father say, I love you, until she was 35.
Samoa as well. And to me, it's like, this is where the kingdom culture trumps everything now. Because now God is saying, use everything and anything to communicate love to these people.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, if you're not contextual because you're verbalizing, like, well, that's where I start drawing the line, because you have to have another thing when it comes to like contextualizing your internal, you have to have a hierarchy of decision making. So what's the hierarchy of decision making? I have to say who my God is and how I'm going to make decisions. So if God is Jesus on the cross, and that's a character, and he will do whatever it takes to, then I have to say, whatever it takes for them to feel love, number one. Cultural sensitivity, number two. Like, so you have to prioritize. You can't say Yahweh.
You have to prioritize based on every single individual, like Jesus with the Samaritan woman. He shifted the way he operated that he did with the rich young ruler.
Well, or let's take the whole Bible.
Yeah.
It's like Yahweh, Joshua, or Jesus, the full revelation. Well, of course, it's all inspired by God, but you have to say Jesus is the full. Like, there's a full revelation, and then there's like, of course, these people got it wrong. God, of course, doesn't want David to go kill the husband, and there's just all this stuff that's like, you got to prioritize Jesus and what he did, and his character. It says, the full revelation of the character of God is Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
So it's the cross, and being raised from the dead is a affirmation that is it. That's how you do it. And so, approaching these people that was a fun game.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really cool way to do it. And I'm going to share that. I might steal that from you.
Yeah, well, and
copyrighted. I'll credit.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But that's what I'm saying with the guy with my friend with the chakras.
Yeah,
it's the same game.
It's mirroring their understanding or their reality or concept.
It's not letting anything stop them from meeting Jesus,
and not using some other term that does not make sense.
Yeah, and almost looking at every single person as another language.
Yeah, that's a unique way of putting it. Jesus did that. Samaritan woman, he treated completely different. Know your backstory. I provide grace. Go and then some sort of challenge. Yeah. Rich young ruler not a lot of grace.
Yeah, you knew the context.
In that context, he was like, "You've done good, man, but you're not quite
talk
there."
To the Sadducees, Pharisees, different than he talks to Mary Magdalene or Mary
Every
Martha.
Person is another language to read and to learn.
Yeah, and it's
another
a game.
Script.
It's another to me. It's like, if it's helpful for me, it's helpful to think of it as a game, because then you're not so uptight.
Okay, so Great Commission is a game.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go play it.
It's a game, but the stakes are high.
The stakes are high, and you don't come back to life like Mario.
Yeah, but you have to be in that mindset, because I think when you're not in that mindset,
it's drudgery.
You start to feel like it's. It becomes some. I don't know. I don't know if it's the best way to look at it, but I think like you look at it from a positive point of view. It gives you some positive feelings about it, and then, of course, there's time for like if you're mourning all the time, you're not in the go get 'em attitude.
Like there's a season for that.
Yeah, but like just
lighten it up. Well, bro. I've loved this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate
you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I might even have you back.
Oh,
who knows?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
What episode is this?
I don't even know.
All right. Well, awesome.
Ben Balafi Jones, everyone.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.